Hi, and welcome to another edition of Jules Voto's Photo Focus. So, how good is Nikon's 135mm 3.5 Pre-Ai Nikkor-Q lens? Keep watching and you'll find out. So, let's go over the specs first. This lens was one of the first lenses introduced in 1959 when the Nikon F was introduced. It's all metal construction, as all of those early lenses were. It's 4 elements in 3 groups, and this particular one has a 7-bladed aperture. Now, the original lens that was introduced with the F in 59 had 9-bladed aperture, and then in 1961 they went to a 6-bladed aperture. And then finally in 1969, it went to 7 blades. So why all those changes all along, I don't know. Usually the more blades produce a rounder aperture as you stop the lens down. And that supposedly improves bokeh. This particular model, the model that I'm reviewing, is a 7-blade variety. It weighs 380 grams or 13.4 ounces, and it focuses down to 5 feet, actually slightly less than 5 feet or 1.5 meters, as you could see here. And it stops down to f32 with the full click stops. It uses 52mm filters, as many Nikkor lenses do, at least many of the manual focus lenses do. And as I said earlier, it's all metal construction, nice smooth focus, very well made lens. Again, as all those Nikkors, all the manual focus Nikkors were all very well made. It takes the HS4 shade, which is a clip-on shade, a metal shade that you can see here. And that shade also works with the 105mm 2.5, as well as this lens, and also the 105mm f4 macro lens. There's also a screw-in version of this shade, a little hard to find. So I use this lens in my standard test setup that you can see here. The lens was on a tripod, 12 feet away from the test area, and I used 2 LED lights, one on each side to give even lighting. I took an incident reading and used that exposure. I also did a custom white balance with my Nikon Z8, and of course manually focused, could only manually focus with that lens, on the Kodak color control patches on the left side. Now, you will note there is a little bit of vignetting. It's hard to see in this, but not much at all. I was, very happy with that. Here we are zoomed into the center, and this lens is very sharp at 3.5. I mean, from center to edge, we now stop down to f4. There's a little less vignetting, and not much difference between f3.5 and f4. There is a click stop for f4. And then the rest of the way, they're full stops. But it sharpens up a little, especially on the edge. But the center, I see no difference. Here we are in the center, zoomed in at f4. Here we are at 5.6. And honestly, it's so close that for all intents and purposes, there's not, like I said, there's not much difference. It's pretty good for a lens, especially a lens this old. This version is in really good shape. This copy that I have is in really good shape. Here we are at f8. You know, I can't tell the difference between f8 and 5.6. Color is good. And, there is variation on lenses from copy to copy. So, maybe I just got a really good one, but this lens does have a good reputation. I stopped it down to f11. Uh, you hear that there's a diffraction should start setting in. I see no loss of sharpness at f11. And I guess I failed to mention that, of course, I'm using this with the F to Z adapter on my Nikon Z8. This is an F mount lens, and to use it on the Z mount cameras, of course, you need an adapter. And also, this lens is very easily adapted to most mirrorless cameras. There are very inexpensive adapters available. So if you're a Canon shooter or a Sony shooter or any other mirrorless camera shooter, you could easily get an adapter. So recently I was at a family gathering and I took this lens along with the Z8. Just wanted to try it out. And I got some shots of my cousin smoking a cigar in the pool. And I was shooting at 5.6 using focus peaking. And I was focusing sort of on his goatee. And it's really sharp. I mean, you can see each individual hair. And this next image is a little soft, and it's not the lens, it was me. And this is one of the reasons why I prefer autofocus, especially with longer lenses on a moving subject, because he was moving around a little bit and I lost focus. If I had had a autofocus lens set for continuous, it would have remained in focus. So here's a few more. And again, I was using, of course, the Z8, auto white balance. I set the non-CPU data into the camera. That's important. You have to do that. And if you do that, the IBIS will work. The in-body image stabilization will work. My shutter speeds were fairly fast. My ISO was 100, and I just kept shooting and very slightly tweaking focus for each image, and they are all sharp. And you can see the background at 5.6 is pretty much out of focus. So then my cousins and their two young children were sitting on the steps, and I was actually sitting across from them on a stool, and the light was really good. This was a little bit later in the day. The sun had sort of gone away, it was behind some clouds. And I just kept shooting. And I don't remember what my aperture was. It was either 5.6 or f8. And that is one of the disadvantages of using the manual focus lenses without a CPU on a digital camera, because you don't get the aperture. The only thing, by setting this non-CPU image data into the camera, it looks like every image was shot at 3.5. Of course, it wasn't. So what I usually do is, after taking each shot, I would record a memo with the camera. The Z6 and the Z8 enable you to do that. So you just press the play button, the image appears on the screen, and then I have the movie record button set to record. I just press the button and I could speak. I think it's up to like 90 seconds, and just say what my aperture was or any other information. So that's a really nice feature. And then when you view the image later on your computer, you get the ability to listen to that memo. So this is a really nice lens, inexpensive. You could pick these up for under $50. The one I have is in mint condition. Came with the box, the bubble, the shade, the original lens cap. And in 1965, Nikon introduced a 135mm 2.8. And that lens had a sliding lens hood built in. 135 was not a lens I used much back in the day. I had one of these years ago. I always used the 105 2.5, and I recently did a video on that lens, and I'll put a link in the description below to that. But more recently, I picked up the 135 1.8 Plena, an autofocus lens for the Z mount, and I love that lens. So let me know what you think. Let me know how you feel about the 135 focal length and this lens in particular. And please leave your comments or your questions in the comments below. And I always try to answer all your questions and respond to all comments. So if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. I publish a new video every Monday morning and Wednesday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. So I will talk to you then.